Welcome back to this second session of our T-Probe. My name is Besnik Mehmeti and I work for the Association of Tuscan Municipalities in Tuscany in Florence. It's not an easy task to resume the moderation of this second session after Karim. It's quite challenging moderating it after him. I'll try to do my best anyway with your support as well. In this session, we'll talk about nature-based solutions. And before starting, please let me provide you a definition of nature-based solution. I will take that of the European Commission that defines nature-based solutions and as solutions that are inspired and supported by nature, which are cost-effective, simultaneously provide environmental, social, and economic benefits, and help build resilience. Such solutions bring more and more diverse nature and natural features and processes into cities, landscapes, and seascapes through locally adapted, resource-efficient, and systemic interventions. Nature-based solutions must therefore benefit by biodiversity and support the delivery of a range of ecosystem services. Today, with me, we have Isabel Ruiz-Mallén and Andrea Balestrini. Isabel is a senior researcher at the Open University of Catalunya at the Urban Transformation and Global Challenges Lab. And Isabel will talk about research conducted in two Spanish cities, in particular in Barcelona and Seville, about the bottom-up climate resilience strategies. And then after Isabel, Andrea will talk. Andrea is a landscape planner, and head of the Land Research Lab. Andrea will talk about some approaches and solutions to disclose the hidden potential of open spaces and involve local communities in a novel perception and governance of the green areas in the cities. So please, Isabel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Okay, it's
I'll
working.
tell you when it gets to 13.
Sorry?
I'll tell you when 13 minutes is up, okay?
Okay, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. As Besnik said, I'm working as a researcher at the Urban Transformation and Global Change Laboratory that is directed by Ramon Rivera, who you may know as part of the T-Factor project. And I have been asked to share with you a little bit of our research on the bottom-up strategies that grassroots and also other collectives in co-production with the city council are implementing in Barcelona for climate resilience and in terms of transformation. And I would like to start with this concept of transformative urban governance applied to climate resilience. That means that we understand that key changes and even radical changes are needed in the traditional ways that policy making approaches have been done in terms of considering power issues. And as the previous speakers also have pointed out, actively engaging the communities and also considering their interests and taking into account their values. And we think, or the project that I am going to present was based on the assumption that we can learn a lot from those responses from the grassroots to the environmental changes, and in particular in the topic that is from our interest, that is climate resilience in terms of climate change impact, to inform, no, these top-down actions that are following these more traditional ways of policy making. And we think that in the current context of increasing citizen mobilization, we have a lot of experiences that sometimes are, and initiatives that sometimes are like hidden in the city, that we try to identify and explore in terms of learn from them. And we did that, or we are doing this because the project is not yet finished, through this Spanish-led project called Recities that is done in Barcelona and Seville, but I'm going to focus on Barcelona because of the time. We, let's say, mapped and identified a series of community-led climate resilient practices throughout the city, and compiled them in this booklet, and I'm going to present some examples. You will find them uploaded at our project website, and I can share the link afterwards. So the first one is the squatted farmhouse called Can Masteu, that is located in one of the northeast neighborhoods of the city, with a low socioeconomic profile, and it has been run by more or less 2 decades, through a self-managed approach. And the aim of this squatted farmhouse is promoting political and social awareness of the effect of climate change. And they have a lot of projects, but there are 2 that are relevant in terms of climate resilience. Sorry if you hear my children, because I'm at home and they are sick and this is a mess, so apologize for that. I will try to finish my presentation in 10 minutes, but maybe I will have to stop it because, yeah, I'm listening them. One of these projects is the restoration of a large raft in the valley that rehabilitated a key infrastructure to store water in the periods of drought, and also helps in reducing the impact of floods. And the other project that is very interesting is some plots for community gardens that are cultivated by those gardeners living in the farmhouse, but also by mainly older people from the neighborhood. And they meet in monthly assemblies to make decisions about how to manage water and the other resources for the community gardens. And of course, these community gardens, as nature-based solutions, also have the potential for climate resilience. And it's interesting also to notice that this project is supported by a huge international network of research centers, and so it's not an isolated initiative. Then we have also identified as some community gardens self-managed, also through monthly assemblies or periodic assemblies by the neighborhoods by the neighbors in other neighborhoods of the city. And we have examples in the city center, like the L'Hortet del Forat that you can see in the picture, and Espais Germanetes, in 2 very different neighborhoods in terms of socioeconomic level. The interesting issue here is that there is some social cohesion about the neighbors that have allowed them to claim for empty spaces in the city and provide them with a use. And some of these, most of these community gardens are working with in a very succinct way. Then we have the same, the same nature-based solution or the same scheme based on community gardens through a co-produced initiative between the Barcelona City Council and the neighbors through the PLAWIDS, that is this city plan. The translation is Backend urban spaces with territorial and social involvement. So the City Council provides some empty spaces to public or private non-profit entities through 3 years, and they have to propose activities for steering the public use of value of those vacant plots. There is an interesting initiative in La Ferroviaria, in the neighborhood of San Andreu, in which the community garden is managed by the old people, mainly old people who are those retired and those who have time, and young people and children from an educational center called CRAE that hosts children and adolescents in situations of social vulnerability, like those from families at risk of social exclusion. And through this community garden, they can see, these children and adolescents can see other role models that benefited from them, and there is some intergenerational learning that happens between them, and so it goes beyond promoting the climate resilience of the city, but also in terms of enhancing the well-being and also addressing social inequalities. And the last initiative from the Recitis project that I want to share with you is a project on gardening of the 3 pits of the city that has been promoted by a non-worker cooperative working on socio-environmental projects in different neighborhoods of the city. And what they do is to engage the students from the local schools. Well, they first identify those streets in the city that that are less green, let's say, and they engage the schools, also the local shops and the associations and local organizations in the neighborhood. And through a series of workshops and activities, hands-on activities, they promote the collective gardening of these 3 pits. Of course, this is not born from a community interest, but it is the cooperative that promotes or tries to promote this interest, and this has this way of working, as perceived by the same cooperative workers, because we interviewed them, is perceived as challenging, because there are some neighbors that cannot be okay with this kind of interventions, and they have suffered some vandalism, for instance in Chample, where this picture was taken, because some of the neighbors disagreed with this kind of intervention. And by contrast, in other neighbors with lowest socioeconomic profile, like Trinitat Vella, these kind of interventions were a succeed, because the neighborhood association was actively engaged, and well, the process was different, but it's one of the learnings, that we are studying. And briefly, the last one is part of a new project that we expect to start soon, and it's about the nature-based solution in the schoolyard. And besides the City Council project on climate shelters that have implemented these nature-based solutions, designed and implemented these nature-based solutions in 11 schools that are basically putting more shadowy spaces, water points, and also aromatic plants. There are a lot of schools that are claiming for having this like of interventions, and the families associations of these schools have been looking for different ways of getting the funding and the support for doing these interventions. For instance, through the digital platform Decidim that was set by the City Council for doing different participatory processes, and the last one recent process was on participatory budget. So they try to include these initiatives there. And just to finish, why this to know more, these bottom-up initiatives matter in terms of city climate resilience management. Well, because community institutions and in terms of, let's say, neighborhood associations and another kind of associations like the organizations, entities like the example of the squatted farmhouse that I explained at the beginning, can persist through change and can learn from challenges and can implement. They are more flexible to implement transformative changes, moving from the status quo than those government institutions. And also because at the scale, we were talking, or you were talking about the scale before, local changes can also lead to feedback effects in improving resilience, but if we want to implement these changes at the regional scale, they can be more costly, and socially unacceptable. So it is important to focus on that, but also to look at this, or to implement this kind of projects that is challenging because the community is often difficult to define. So what is the community? The neighborhood? Is the school community? Are the citizens of a city? Who is in this community? And also, once we have the definition of the community, there are a lot of the community can be very heterogeneous, and there could be a lot of conflicting interests. So just to finish, this is my last slide. This is the attributes of community resilience that can be applied to the climate resilience literature from the rural studies. And I think, we think at our group that it's also useful and interesting to look at this body of literature that have been working with rural communities and identified the importance of, let's say, knowledge, values, social networks, etc., in the way of promoting climate resilience and to foster transformations to inspire our works in the cities. And that's it. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop. And sorry for the noise.
Thank you very much, Isabel, and for this fascinating and heroic presentation. Despite the kids crying, we appreciated very much your calm. You were able to keep the calm, and it's not very usual.
Yeah.
So I would pass the floor to Andrea for his presentation, and then we'll have the room for questions from the audience. Please, Andrea.
Thank you, Besnik. So, hello, everybody. I have the honor to close this second session. So will try to be not too long, but also I felt responsible to give you some insights of T-Factor projects, and so this is actually the major focus of my presentation today. First of all, I would like to highlight the role that nature plays in our work now more than ever, where we are facing in cities but also in rural community a sort of disconnection between people and the natural elements. And I think working in the age of uncertainty, that is one of the mottos of T-Factor project, requires also a new approach to nature that involves, of course, participatory approaches. We have been watching and hearing in the last years how all levels of society are requiring fairer environmental justice. And we are also glad to see how young people are engaging even in this COP26 for a new agreement between humans and nature. The European Commission has been implementing the strategy of nature-based solutions since 2015. But I think it is important to remind that in 2021, in February this year, the nature-based solutions have been included in the European strategy on climate adaptation, and they are recognized as an effective multi-purpose solution to tackle climate change and simultaneously provide benefits in terms of economic and social services to the society. So, as landscape architects, what we are facing is a change of perspectives on who is the inhabitant and who is the host. What we are trying to do in our project, but also what many cities are trying to do, is paying more attention on non-human elements, as also we have seen from Rosalie's presentation, and how the two components can live together. So how can a new urban nature thrive, but also how can human activities still being carried out without generating contrasts. This is, for example, a park that we designed in Montreal, in Canada. It's biodiversity corridors where there are spaces that are conceived as spaces for nature, where humans are not allowed, let's say, or at least where human disturbance is not interfering in the activities of animals and plants. In T-Factor project, we have a quite outstanding format that are the transformation labs. These transformation labs are thematic laboratories supporting the different pilot projects with activities, with research insights, and with in this kind of support in organizing events, for example. Land, together with UAL, is part of T-Lab 4 on urban design and society and well-being. And through this T-Lab, we have been doing some workshops last springs together with the pilots to understand which were the needs and expectations from each city and how we can ideate some experimental activities to then really test and successfully implement temporary uses and spaces. So each T-Labs worked in the past months with an overarching question. Our question was how we can renew the relationship with nature in urban environments. And we addressed this question to the pilots in Milan and Amsterdam, where since last May, approximately, we carried out some activities. In both cases, we organized the first exploratory event to get to know with the stakeholders and to explore the context, and also in this way understand the potential of organizing participatory events for placemaking. Then in September, we realized 2 events with the same methodology, but with, of course, quite different outcomes. One in Milan, that was a workshop, one in Amsterdam that was carried out with another TLab, TLab 3 about digitalization, and we call it ecology of attention. So this participatory approach allowed us to map emotions from the participants and scan a quite different reality from the one that we are used to see in the master plan, the official master plans of these regeneration areas. Our aim was to develop alternative mappings, sort of mental mappings, providing insights on possible meanwhile spaces or meanwhile uses. So the methodology that we adopted in both cases was preparing some cards, and in the back of this card there is a map of the site. We defined some stations, we called them like this. They were stops where we identified a certain potential to investigate. So each participant wrote his impression or her impressions, emotions or suggestions, and then we processed all these cards with a methodology that can be resumed here in this diagram. So the data have been clustered, and then we tried to assign a different character to each station according to the impressions that were gathered in the corresponding box of the cards. And from the character, we identified also which could be the potential. Finally, some participants even proposed already some actions that might be implemented on that very spot. So the final level of the processing is the proposal level. Then I would like to show you more in detail how this methodology has been applied for the MIND pilot. MIND is the Milano Innovation District, is a brand new area that is redeveloping the former site of Expo 2015. This area will become innovation district with resource centers, universities, hospitals, startups, and housing. And at the moment, just a small part of it is developed, but is completely active. Let's say it's a building site. So we invited some stakeholders from the territory that we partially got to know in the explorative phase, and partially are coming from our own portfolio of local contacts. And we organized a double walk. So there was actually a walk from a nearby municipality and a bike ride from a regional park that is also located not far from mine, because we wanted to investigate also how people perceive the accessibility to the site. That is the major challenge at the moment, and also how the perception of landscape changed according to the transport or to the mean we were proposing. So here you see some pictures from the bike ride, and then this bike ride merged the last stops with the walking group. We tried to work on the perception of landscape, and also a lot with the memory of landscape, and this was the fil rouge leading till to mind area, where, for example, the topic of waterways and rural past can barely be perceived, but are really part of the genesis of this area. We mapped human and non-human perceptions, and this is currently helping us a lot to redefine the perspective of the sites from both dimensions. With the data processed in the cards, we have been developing some graphs that help us understanding, for example, in which stops some clusters were stronger and in which others were weaker, or on the other way around, which keywords have been used more in which stops. And this led us to develop the placemaking compass, that is a way to visualize this clustering and this prioritizing of emotions in each stop. You see that here the single stop have been associated with a keyword and then with other concepts that have been expressed in the cards. And finally, in the outer orbits, there are the proposed actions. These actions have been categorized according to the difficulty of implementation or the time scale. So, for example, if there are actions that can be realized now or in 5 years or in 2 months. So this was our experience in T-Factor so far, and it's still ongoing, but I think it's also interesting to see what other European projects have been doing concerning nature-based solution and participation. This is the case of Unilab, another Horizon project where we are involved. This project is implementing 3 demonstrators of nature-based solution in 3 cities to improve climate and water resilience. The 3 cities are Eindhoven, Genova, and Tampere, and particularly we have supported the municipality in Genova to create a brand new park on a former military barrack. The entire co-creation of the project has been managed consortium-wide, and then in the single frontrunner cities, specific activities has been carried out with the local stakeholders, also thanks to some methodology that has been developed within the project. In Genova, sorry? No, I was hearing some noise.
2 minutes to go, Andrea.
Okay, thank you. So in Genova, the major challenge is water resilience, well, one of the challenges, and this led us to work also with the people on which solutions could be tackling this problem. So in the project, we displayed a set of 12 different nature-based solutions that at the moment are under construction and are turning this former urbanized area into a new vibrant public space with spotted NBS, allowing also people to experience how nature is changing and how nature is reacting to climate change. To give you an example how or where these participatory processes could lead, I also selected this water park that we have opened a few weeks ago in a municipality northern from Milan. This area was used to be flooded during rainy events. It's approximately 1 hectare wide, so it's not so huge. And the design was required by the local water utility to solve this problem. So actually what was needed primarily was an infiltration basin, and we decided to work with this topic of water and create a more attractive and interactive recreational area with community gardens, playgrounds, and resting spots. Again, it's important here to underline the role of transformation within nature dynamics, and also make people perceive that a more adaptive approach to urban open spaces requires also a sensitivity on how nature can evolve during different seasons, or how it's growing across time. And finally, well, this is the park realized, and here you see that has been already tested with some first rain events. And finally, this is the last project I wanted to bring to your attention. This is a quite complex project, started in the 90s, at least at institutional level. It's one of the flooding area that has been planned by the regional government to prevent floodings in Milan metropolitan region. So in this project, many local communities and citizens have been involved in a very contrasting topic. So, for example, a major issue was why should municipalities not affected by flooding sacrifice huge areas to help other municipalities that are located downstream. But thanks to a participatory approach, the process was quite successful, and now the park is completed, is working in terms of hydrological services, but also it's a new spot of biodiversity at regional level, and above all has been well accepted by the population that is spending here free time, the weekends, and in comparison, this area that was an agricultural area, previous this intervention was really not conceived as a outdoor facility for the nearby municipalities. So thank you very much. I hope this overview was a explanatory landing point of the debate.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for this exciting presentation. A lot of solutions to nature-based, a lot of approaches, different approaches to nature-based solutions. And now let's open the floor to questions and remarks from the audience. I see here in the chat, and maybe this is for Isabel, a question from Fred, who is writing that in terms of complaints and resistance, how do we challenge the culture that fears mess, particularly among those who have grown up in a society that reinforces cleanliness as part of aspirational culture? Isabel, and then Andrea, if you'd like also to answer to this remark.
Yeah, this is a very big issue. Speaking with the people in the cooperative, they said that they should have been done some previous work on creating some awareness of the benefits, of doing this kind of interventions, because what they saw was that some neighbors just found that the tree pits were now with vegetation, and even if the kids grew plants, beautiful flower plants, and it was not like a mess, but there is this common perception that the city should be, I don't know, clean, and also there is an issue, at least in Barcelona, with dogs, because these spaces, this is the conflicting use, These spaces are for dogs to do their needs, so they don't have, there is no space for plants. So they said, well, we have to do some work in these neighborhoods that where in some of them there are more dogs than children, and create some awareness of the importance of having green spaces in these small areas, but also here in Barcelona, we have seen how after the pandemic, because of the lack of maintenance by the municipality, because of the lockdown. Some of the spaces have been like just growing, and there have been a lot of complaints from some citizens. But what we think also that is that they are some few citizens, but with a strong voice, no? And yeah, this is the thing, no? How to deal with these conflicting issues. There is not a full solution.
And Andrea, before also posting the question from Daniel to Isabel, Andrea, if you'd like to add something on the previous remark about the urban decor, let's say.
Yeah, yeah. This is an everyday challenge. It's not uncommon. So, especially in Southern European culture, I think this is hard to be communicated. And my only suggestion is that when you realize projects are working, it's the best way to convince people that the mess is an advantage and is not an hazard for quality of life in cities. For example, including water in projects is always an issue because people fear insects, mosquitoes, and whatever. But when you compare these sort of annoyances with the damage that the flooding can provoke to your neighborhood, I don't think there is much to add.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. And again, for Isabel, the question from Daniel in the chat. Daniel is interested to hear how different projects you presented started and the ways that they have evolved. And in particular about urban gardens, one of the challenges is about the engagement, how this can be kept and sustained, no? If you could elaborate a bit more on this, Isabel.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, of course. Well, those gardens that are self-managed, let's say, by some of them, because now there are like more than 40, no? So each one has their own story. But some of them were born as a result of the mobilizations of the 15th of May in 2011, I think. So claiming for more, for the citizens' right, no, to the city. So there are a result of neighbors' mobilization, and they have been run because their engagement was there. No, they asked for them, and they occupied the spaces, and they created the gardens. And if there have been some intergenerational, so if there are people who are still managing the garden, there can be sustained, and they have these occupied spaces, and the associations or the groups of people behind them have ensured, no, that this replacement, intergenerational replacement, will happen. Then we have the other types of gardens from the plugweed. Some of them were a result of projects from neighborhood associations, and in this case, most of them are still there. But of course, there are another initiatives that if there were like 1-2 leaders and the rest of the community was not properly engaged, they finish when the leader stopped his or her interest, no? And of course, this engagement is a challenge.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Patrick is, let's say, is interested to know how do we convey ecological knowledge and share practices. He takes, let's say, a starting point from the rewilded urban spaces in Brighton. And I would add to this point that cities are more and more, no, as in Brighton, are more and more intervening or plan to intervene, no, in the built environment and in particular in the private neighborhoods with the use of nature-based solutions. And we all know and agree that co-design processes are crucial to ensure, no, the sustainability of this kind of interventions and to design governance schemes that ensure that nature-based solutions are kept, are maintained by the citizenship, are not, let's say, destroyed, because we see also cases of nature-based solutions that with a lack of maintenance, they have been destroyed. So how can involve vulnerable people and also people at risk of social inclusion in this kind of processes, both for you, Andrea, and Isabel?
Well, I'm not sure I have an answer for this because, as I told you in other occasions, in some experiences that we have, even through participatory processes, it is hard to get to those vulnerable categories of the population. So most of the times we are aware that the consultation that we have with the citizens is not representative, of course, for all kind of citizens, but above all is not, it is maybe the mainstreaming opinion and is not addressing the challenges of most vulnerable categories. I think also what we have done at the moment in T-Factor was addressing a range of stakeholders where we are not, we don't have the control to understand at the moment if they are the vulnerable ones or not.
And Isabel, if you have any, I mean, view based from your experience on your research on this?
Yeah, well, I think that sometimes we propose a participatory methodology and we think that everyone will fit in. And the same way that we take time to analyze ecological engineering, architectural aspects when we design the nature-based solutions interventions, I think that we should devote also time and resources to do social research and understand the values, the interests, motivations, the spaces of interaction, the ways that more social disadvantaged groups interact between themselves and with the rest of the society, with their environment, to be able to design some maybe it's not necessary to invent anything, but just to include some of their processes of collaboration, of learning, of interaction within our methodologies or within the project that we want to devote. Sometimes it's useful to approach this kind of communities through the schools, because in the school you can have access to parents, through the children, and sometimes you have a mixture, of profiles, and it's one way to approach to them. But of course it's challenging, yes.
But also I think this underlines the need to have a multidisciplinary approach. So we are completely aware that the landscape approach in terms of managing MBS at a technical level, it's not enough. And that's the resource that I think we have in European projects, where you are in touch with other disciplines such as social studies and participatory groups. And unfortunately, this is not quite easy to get in normal projects. With normal, I mean where there is a private or public client with not such a vision, and so the budget is always ruling what you do then.
Thank you both for your presentations and for your availability to answer to our questions. I believe we are at the very end of our T-Probe, and I'd like to thank all the speakers, all the organizers, Karim for moderating, everyone who has participated in this first effort we did online today. Thank you very much, and see you again very soon, I hope.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.